Hey guys, so I was finally able to get out and see Alien Covenant, and I wanted to give you my initial reaction to the film. Hopefully you guys watching the video have already seen the movie as well, because there will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the movie or you don't want to see spoilers, be warned, spoilers ahead. That being said, I will start off by saying that overall I really liked the movie. After hearing a lot of bad press about it, I went into the theater not expecting much, but I was pleasantly surprised. I'd heard a lot of people say that if you like Prometheus, you may not like Covenant, as the movie leans more towards Alien than it does towards Prometheus. I will also state that I'm in the camp that really liked Prometheus. Sure, it had its faults, but I loved the big questions that the movie asked. And I'm not the kind of person who always needs the answers to these questions at the end of the movie. Because of all these unanswered big questions, I've probably discussed Prometheus with my friends more than any other film, and that's a part of the movie that I really enjoy. That said, I can see where some fans of Prometheus would be somewhat upset with Covenant, however, I was still able to enjoy the movie. In a recent interview with Ridley Scott, he said that David feels rejected by the human race in Prometheus because he thinks that they are inadequate. He also thinks that the engineers messed up because their own creation, the humans, turned against them. So David now plans to do away with both species. Now Ridley also stated in this interview that David wanted to destroy the engineers on the planet, which infers that those humanoids we see are in fact engineers. To me, this is either terrible makeup and prosthetic work, or it's possible that the engineer in Prometheus is not the same as the engineers on the planet Paradise. To me, they look like a species either created by the engineers or by the same people that created the engineers. I had the theory before watching the movie that these people were actually created by the engineers and that they worship them. The poor makeup job was actually the people applying makeup to their faces in a show of worship towards the engineers. To me, this even explains why they would all come out to greet the Juggernaut when it arrives, and why they would all be cheering when it shows up. I really hope that Ridley further explains this planet later on, and comes up with a plot reasoning as to why these people, who don't look very technologically advanced, are not the same engineers as we see in Prometheus. Perhaps those engineers are the way they look in Prometheus due to them having been crossbred or changed with the black goo, which would explain their armor, which to me, in every picture and concept art that I've seen, looks like it's a part of them and not a suit. Now, even though I said I really enjoyed Prometheus, I really enjoyed Covenant as well. As far as where I would rank Covenant in the franchise, I'm going to need more viewings of it in order to really put it in its place. But for now, I'd say it fits in after Prometheus with me, with my top 3 going Alien, Aliens, and then Prometheus. But this may change as time goes on. As for the acting in the movie, I was pleasantly surprised here. Katherine Waterston did a good job to me as the main character in the movie. She isn't Ripley, but I don't need a Ripley in order to enjoy an Alien movie. I actually think Alien 3 and 4 would have been better without her, and I love Sigourney Weaver. I just thought Fox was wrong in thinking that no one would watch Alien 3 or 4 without her. James Franco is almost not even really in the movie, but I saw in an interview in which Ridley said he met with James and that James wanted a cameo, and that's what he ended up getting, which is why we don't see him too much in the movie. Michael Fassbender is simply amazing as usual in Covenant. I was really surprised in how much I found myself liking Walter, the newer, less human AI. Fassbender did a great job in portraying both androids. Their discussions about life, AI, and the humans was really well done to me. I'd have to say though that the biggest surprise in the cast in the movie for me was Danny McBride. He was incredible in this movie, and not just for comic relief. He was funny, but it really didn't feel like the comedy was forced, and he played a more serious role in this movie as well. I actually hope that he gets more serious roles like this going forward after Covenant, because after seeing his performance in this movie, I think he's a much better actor than he's been given credit for, and I would love to see him do non-comedic roles Even the rest of the crew felt more fleshed out to me than the crew that we had in Prometheus. I actually liked the dynamic of all of the crew being married as well. To me, that upped the odds. It's not just some random crew member getting torn up by neomorphs and xenomorphs, but it's your wife or your loved one that's dying. This added a lot more weight to the situation to me. One point that I would like to mention, however, was the type of movie Ridley was shooting for here. In many of the early interviews, we kept hearing about the amount of blood used in the movie and how the aliens would scare the living hell out of us. By this, I took it that Covenant was meant to be a horror/action film. I got the action part of the movie. It felt closest to Aliens in the amount of action going on in the film, but as far as horror, I really found it lacking here. I don't think I jumped once in the movie, and I didn't notice anyone else in the theater jumping either. I just didn't get the horror vibe from this film. The alien was shown too much. You knew that the attack was coming. Now, I will have to admit, some of this could be because of all the spoiler footage that was shown. I had seen a good chunk of this movie before sitting down and actually watching it. The attack scenes were done well, they just weren't that scary. That said, this also means that you get a lot of great views of both the neomorph and the xeno or protomorph. Now, speaking of the neomorphs, this was another pleasant surprise for me. I love the Neos. They are such vicious little bastards. They seem even more bloodthirsty than the xenomorphs, even more ravenous. They rip up their prey and they take their time. It's not just a jaw to the face, but they tear you up. At first I thought they looked more fleshy and would be easier to take down than the xenomorphs. And even though the Xenos may prove to have a more stronger exoskeleton, it was not very easy to put a Neo down. They took many shots and kept on coming. I would love to see them make another appearance in later films, or maybe even have more variants of the alien. Many people said that they were forced into the movie just to have another alien, but to me, they were the stars of the show in the first half. As far as the Xenos, or protomorphs if you will, they were done really well in this to me as well. I kept hearing about the fact that they were mostly CG, but to me that's almost a silly argument. I mean, it's 2017, what do you expect? I mean, even Godzilla now is CG. Even the Toho Godzilla now is CG. So this argument doesn't hold up to me. I know some people said some of the CG scenes they didn't think were that great quality. I'm gonna have to see another viewing in order to notice that. What I caught in the first viewing was amazing as far as the movement and the portrayal of the alien. To me, this allowed the alien to finally move as fast as it should and to be more ravenous, being able to jump and move much quicker than before. I also thought that the xenomorph bursting out of the body in small drone form instead of being a chest burster was a nice twist as well. Even though it was another spoiler that I had already seen before watching the movie, it showed that we aren't quite at the real xenomorph yet, and there's still more work for David to do before we get to the alien xeno that we all know and love. When it comes to the plot of the movie, it does a good job for me. There are some parts in the movie that I would like to have seen done better, but it's hard to make a horror film, or a movie trying to be a horror film, seem totally realistic. If people won't go into the dark basement alone, the horror movie doesn't progress. So part of horror to me has always been questionable judgment on the characters in order to move the plot along. I do, however, wish that the crew would keep their damn helmets on in the next prequel movie. We've seen in the first Alien movie that the facehugger can break through a helmet like Kane's, so the actors don't need to be walking around on a new planet with no breathing apparatus. It's just plain stupid and would never happen in real life. That said, I know that they wanted us to see the actors and not have them all stumbling around in helmets. After all, it's a movie, and they don't pay actors a ton of money in order to then hide them under helmets. I know in the commentary on both Alien and Prometheus, they state that the helmets totally suck to wear and were always messing up shots and screwing up, so that comes into play as well. To me, the main plot worked out quite well. The movie moved along briskly and gave you two main parts to enjoy. The first part with the initial landing and the neomorphs, and then the second part with the temple and back on the Covenant with the xenomorph. Both worked really well to me. I just wish we got to see more of the city on the planet. Now this is where my main beef with the movie plot comes in. The sheer lack of the engineers. I get that they thought that Prometheus did poorly due to the lack of aliens. To me, this was no problem at all with Prometheus, as I found the engineers much more exciting than the aliens at this point. We get these huge questions in Prometheus, and they're just avoided in Covenant. Like I said earlier, the people on the planet don't even look like engineers to me in the first place, and they are only on screen for a few minutes, and are not really talked about again. To me, this is a huge flaw in the script. I didn't need all the questions from Prometheus answered, but it would have been awesome to see the engineers more, and I mean like the one that you see in Prometheus, or at least an explanation as to why they look different. Another plot point that really upset a lot of people was the fate of Elizabeth Shaw. To me, I'm fine with her not really being in the movie. I like Noomi, don't get me wrong, but I don't rely on people to survive in these kind of movies, so not having her was fine with me. If anything, I wanted her to live just to get more answers on the engineers, not because I wanted her to be in the second movie. I was also fine with not seeing a queen to lay the eggs that David has. I believe that these eggs are actually Shaw's eggs, mutated by the black goo. And that's another plot point that I don't know how I really feel about yet. It's the black goo and how it stands in Covenant. We do get to see ampules and urns in David's lab, but the goo itself was portrayed as being almost sentient, and that really didn't work for me. The way the bombs exploded in midair and then the goo swirls around and pretty much attacks people, that didn't work for me as well. It wasn't game breaking, but I want more information as to what David has done to the substance to make it act this way. Hopefully later movies will give more insight into that. Now before watching the film, I couldn't help but wonder why they would land on a different planet, as they spent years planning and plotting their journey. I get the use of the old intelligent message, gotta check it out, but I thought that the fear of the crew not wanting to re-enter cryosleep after the accident helped tip the scales in order for the crew to make that decision to check out this planet. Beyond those issues, I like the plot for the rest of the movie, and even though there are some flaws in the writing, the plot as a whole worked for me and I enjoyed the overall story. So where does this leave the movie as far as being a part of a whole in the Alien franchise? There are still many questions that I think need to be answered in the next film. They need to clarify and I hate to say this, retcon the age of the eggs and the space jockey in the first Alien movie. I really don't want to see a retcon, but maybe they can further clarify the situation. Clearly David cannot create the xenomorph if the eggs on the derelict on LV-426 are older than the creation of the Xenos in Alien Covenant. This sucks to me, as even if Ridley were to state that the ship and the eggs aren't that old, then he's got to explain the condition of the body of the space jockey. Why did it look so old, and why is it much larger than the normal engineers? As far as the mural in Prometheus, many people are saying that that's further evidence of the creation of the xenomorphs before David's creation. But to me, that mural has always been a Deacon alien and not the xenomorph that we know in later films just by the shape of its head, but that's just my opinion. To be honest, David still hasn't made the Xeno as we know them now, so the age of the derelict would have to be after what happens in Alien Awakening as well. These kind of plot holes do suck, and I see why there is so much hate for the prequels. I don't want retcons to happen to Alien or the later films, but I'm going to hold my judgment on this until I'm able to see all the prequel movie. All in all, I think that Covenant is a good installment to the franchise. I've enjoyed both prequels more than I liked Alien 3 or 4, and I think over time, Prometheus may even pass Aliens for my second favorite movie in the series, but I'm going to need more time and viewings before I'd move Aliens down in that list. So what did you guys think of the movie? Did you like it, love it, or hate it? Does it fit in well with the franchise for you, and are you excited for Alien Awakening? Do you want to see more of the traditional engineer that we saw in Prometheus? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.